Good morning. This is a general process vlog for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2011. Uh, Last night I had an experiment where I was laying in bed, and what I did was I closed my eyes and I attempted to experience my environment without the use of my eyes. So I heard the sounds, and I would feel my skin on the bed. Excuse me, my skin on the bed, and it would sort of anchor me in this black equality where all sensations became more equal. They were not um, grid placed, and it was, although I could detect from which direction the sound was, I was also aware of the sound coming in from the opposite side and the specific sounds on each side, and also this sense of almost just floating on sensation of the skin. And it came from, at least in part, from an experience where I've been having a chest pain, but it's an odd sensation. It's almost like it's on fire. And uh, I took a couple ibuprofen, ibuprofen, and it just went away. And I have this feeling that it is actually of the mind, because I was laying on the couch, and as I simply experienced my skin touching the couch, the pain went away. It was simply like a memory. Um, and it feels like a tightening, which is an interesting sensation. But I can breathe without a problem. It doesn't hurt today, but yesterday um, it was, and the day before. And another thing about the pain is is constant. It did not increase in intensity or decrease in intensity, but it moves in waves. Like it would come and go without medication sometimes. But it became strongest, especially when I laid down to go to bed. Um, but yesterday was hurting throughout the day, so I did take some ibuprofen. Um, and after I did, it just completely wiped the memory of it away. But I did not breathe in fear of the pain, because it was such a pain that it was constant, and it was from I don't know exactly what, and um, somewhat intense. So I was afraid of it. So I experienced that lack of fear. It was like it was complete relief. And a reason, as I said, I think it is of the mind, is because when I experienced my skin touching the couch, it simply completely went away for a moment, and the only thing that remained was the memory of the pain. And then when I did not focus on the memory of the pain, it was as though it wasn't there at all. And yet, I would think of the memory, and then it would come back. And along these lines, I was laying in bed last night as well, and um, I was extremely warm for some reason. And I was laying there, and I was tossing and I was turning. I was taking off the covers, and I was pulling on my pajama pants and taking off my shirt, and just tossing and turning and feeling the heat of the pillow on my side. And uh, then I felt my skin, and my skin was actually at least cool compared to the temperature I was feeling of the bed and the pillow. but also either instantly I could feel the heat coming from my palms, or it was simply the contact of the skin and the skin that I felt the heat. But it made me question, you know, was it my human physical body creating this heat? Was it coming from, say, myself, or my mind? And that all of this time I've been experiencing this heat, because it's not the first time. I've practically done it throughout all my life from time to time. Experienced just this heat where, there's just no coolness. And perhaps it was never my human physical body. I always assumed it was because I could feel the heat on the bed and I could feel the heat in the pillow. But it may have just been me feeling the heat in general. I have a request as far as character flaws, in that if you consider me to have a character flaw, please be specific. Um, this is one way you can certainly help me at this moment, specifically. Because one thing I realized about myself is I don't consider myself guilty of anything from the perspective that I choose. And the statement I hear within myself is, how can I be guilty if I choose to do it? Because I only answer to myself in the end. But also, as the observer, I can list instances in which I would consider myself guilty. And so the question is, how is it that I perceive it to be this way? And the answer I get is, as the observer, the only way I can be the observer is to be nothing. Because if I'm anything else, I will be the subjector, and I will have a perspective. But only as nothing can I truly be an observer. As the participant, I see myself as nothing, that is, having no consequence in the point of choosing. Because, as I said, how can I be guilty if I choose to do it? And I only have to answer to myself in the end. And yet here comes this question of, if I had to choose again, there are things that I would not choose that I did choose. And so that says guilt, because otherwise, if I am not guilty, why wouldn't I do the same things over? So the question is, did I do the right thing every single time, no matter what, or the correct thing? Or am I guilty because I harmed someone? And that became my question. Yes, as far as I am concerned, I am consequence free. But as far as another is concerned, through my actions, words, and perhaps thoughts, they are not consequence free, either through their choice or through me imposing my choice upon them. And so I understand, yes, I can incur guilt through that process, which is what I must now actually go back and re-review everything, because this point of being both wave and particle nature, presents a conundrum, because the moment you become an observer, you collapse the wave function and there's a particle. I am here. This is what is here. And, it can be everything. Anything, which means the observer has to be nothing, of course, in order to incur all possibilities. And the wave already is everything, which is why it can become everything, or be possibly everything, including nothing, because you cannot be everything without being nothing at the same time. And so in this, the observer and the participant are the same. Or the yes, the observer and the participant are the same. And that is how I can both perceive myself to be guilty and not guilty at the same time. So simply uniting these, I guess, natures, I can actually move in equality. No longer simply choosing to do what I want to do, but simply choosing what is best for all, because I understand that I have the possibility of creating consequences. And to me, free choice is no consequence. It is as though it didn't happen. And yet it did happen. Another point I wanted to make about the pain in my chest, it started when I stopped smoking fake marijuana. And thank you, Daryl, for your support. It is not the same by any means, and it is detrimental to the human physical body to an extent that could have long-term effects. And I do not recommend smoking fake stuff. Hold out if you smoke marijuana and you want to get high. You know, that was my excuse. I just want to get high. I don't care. It's all chemicals anyway. The earth made marijuana in some degree, to some extent, even if it's completely. And so, hold out. Don't smoke the fake stuff. You'll regret it in the end. And take it from me, regret is not some place you want to be. Excuse me. I read a Destiny Daily Dimensional Diary, 28th of October 2008, The Creation of Light. It sounds... Well, I have a question. The vein, are you referring to veins as blood vessels in general, or veins as opposed to arteries? And the what is the term you use? I notice you use what I called in the moment small terms, because you are speaking of small things, even though they are big words, and they're also physics terms, as opposed to human physical body part terms. It would seem to me you're speaking more to a machine that needs data as opposed to an image that is images. I mean, words are images as well, and pictures, yet they are symbols that have only been given that certain value. You know, they are not necessarily that in and of themselves, except for perhaps this manifested captured sound. No, that is a symbol that is one with its representation. And if I had to guess, it's DNA, and the part that is reflecting is the earth itself. I can understand how, when you say a slave to energy, after reading this, you describe slaves of energy, and it seems the whole system manifestation is to carry energy, to transport energy. And the manifestation of light, it explains, you know, the whole closing of the eyes and there is no more light, because from what I could picture, the sun's light is so bright when I look at it, it should surely be able to pierce such a thin skin. I mean, for it to be so bright and then all of a sudden so dark, it simply didn't make sense. And also, the manifestation of light through this process explains why light is so important to the mind consciousness system in terminology and symbology. Because as far as it is concerned, it truly is its source. Because that is the first point it sees, that moment of reflection. And speaking of darkness, I was considering